dear friends, this Shabbos we read the last two parshas of Vayikra, Leviticus, and it's Shabbos Chazak. We finished the entire third book of the Torah, and it's also Shabbos Mevorchim of the month of Sivan, which is the month when we receive the Torah. In this week's parsha, the first pasuk of this week's parsha, it says like this: Ki savoyu el aretz, when we come to the land of Israel, Asher ani noisen lachem, which God gives you the land of Israel. B'shavsa aretz Shabbos Hashem. The land should rest a sabbatical year for Hashem. And then it says 6 years you should plow the field, and the 7th year rest. So the question is a very powerful question. From the pasuk, it sounds like as soon as you enter the land of Israel, you should have a sabbatical year. The question is, how could you have a sabbatical year if you didn't have 6 years of working? A sabbatical is usually after you work 6 years, so the 7th year you rest. Here the Torah says, as soon as you come to the land, you should right away, the land should rest. What kind of rest is there? First, you have to plow the land for 6 years, then there's rest. How could I have rest before I work? It's like saying I want to go on vacation before I start the job. So the Jews just entered Israel. The Torah says right away, v'shavsa aretz. You should right away have a rest. So he says, in order to understand this, we have to understand another verse in Mishlei, which says that the Jews are called achoisi rayasi. The Jews are called God's brothers, and rayasi comes from the word God's supplier. In other words, not only are we the brothers of God, but we sustain God. We give God energy. So the question is, what does it mean that a Jew is a brother of God? What does it mean, a brother? Number two, what does it mean we give God? What do we give God? God is the one that sustains us, not we sustain God. And here in the Mishlei it says, Achoisi rayasi. God says to the Jewish people, my brother. He calls God, the Jews, his brother. And rayasi, the one that sustains me. How does that happen? So he explains the word in Hebrew for brother or sister is achi, achoisi. What does it come? It comes from the source of the word ichui alexandriye. What is ichui alexandriye? When you take a garment that's ripped in two, and you want to sew it back together to become one. There's two ways to sew it. One way you sew it is you just stitch it back together, and it's back one garment, but you could still tell that there was a rip in this garment. It's just that it became back one piece, but you still see that there's two pieces that became one. Then this Ichui Alexandria means that it becomes so one that you don't even see there was ever a seam. There was no rip. Basically, you weave it back together, and that's called Ichui Alexandria. So the word of brother comes from that root, ach. Our brothers and sisters are naturally together. They're naturally one. They don't have to create a love to each other. Just the fact that they're brothers, just the fact that they're sisters and brothers and sisters makes them that they're one. They become ach. They're so together as one entity. The same thing, the Jew and Hashem. The Jew's connection to Hashem is not something that two entities. Hashem and the Jewish people, the love that a Jew has to Hashem is so strong that their connection to Hashem is as if they're one entity. They're one, like a brother. Like you can't even tell where's Hashem, where's the Jew. That's how strong the love is. The problem is this love that a Jew has to Hashem like a brother is not always revealed. A lot of times it's like there's ups and downs. By a tzaddik, that love is constant. He's always a brother. By a Jew, maybe during davening, maybe during you marry off your child, the love to Hashem, there's different times. But to say that you have that love in a constant way, that you feel that connection, no. So how do you get that love to be constant? So he says the way you do it is Pischili kechuda shamachat vani eftachach kepischa shalulam. Hashem says to me, says to the Jewish people, open me a little opening in your heart like the pin, a hole of a pin, the little opening, and I will open like the entranceway of the temple, which was 20 amos wide. which is like 40 feet wide. I just want you to do a little open, and I'll open the rest. So if you don't feel that deep connection to Hashem like a brother, because your love is involved in physical things and material things, so you don't get that feeling, no problem, Hashem says. I will do it for you, but I need you to do the first start, the first beginning. How? Open up a little of your heart, and I'll open up the rest, and we'll become not only like husband and wife, we'll be like brothers, which is a natural love. So that's the love of a chosi. Then there's Rayasi. Rayasi means we sustain God. How do we sustain God? So here there's an interesting concept. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but when you learn Torah, every time you learn Torah, the Torah becomes one with you. And by the Torah becoming one with you, you could enhance and bring new concepts, as we spoke about yesterday in the lesson, to derive new laws in the Torah that the Torah doesn't speak about. So for example, we spoke about the electric switch on Shabbos. If you see the rabbis that give the opinion that you're allowed to use the electric switch, or the rabbis that say no, what are they basing it on? Each one is deriving from the Torah, with the principles of the oral Torah, a proof from the Torah that the electric switch is permitted on Shabbos. The other rabbis derive from the Torah, according to the principles of the Torah, that the switch is forbidden on Shabbos. They're both bringing proof. They can't just say forbidden. They have to derive it. But in order that you should have that power, that you should be able to take Torah and derive all new things from Torah and bring new concepts in Torah, you need one thing. You need the Torah to become one with you, united with you. How do you do that? How do you get the Torah to become united with you? So this is where we have, it's called baked bread. What does baked bread mean? If you want your body should get nourishment from bread, you first have to make it the kernels into flour. Then you have to mix it with water. Then you have to bake it. And once it's baked and you eat it, then the wheat becomes sustenance to you. If you eat raw kernels, your body's not getting sustenance. If you eat flour, your body doesn't get sustenance. If you eat raw dough, it's the Torah, the Talmud says it's like a piece of garbage in you. It doesn't, raw dough. When does the dough, once it goes through the four processes, grinding, kneading, and then baking, and it's a finished baked bread, then if you eat it, then your body can nourish and get sustenance on the bread. The same thing with Torah. If you're going to learn Torah and feel like you're this big Balgaiva, like you own God, so you never grinded yourself, like the flour, you didn't become flour, the Torah you learn is a waste of time. It's not going to do anything. The same thing is, even if you grinded yourself, but you didn't mix the flour with water, which is the wisdom of God, it's not going to work. And the last thing is, if you don't put a fire, which is the love, the passion that you have to Hashem, and you just learn Torah because it's a nice idea, but not because you love Hashem. So the Torah is going to be like a raw piece of dough, and it's not going to have any effect on you. The only way Torah has an effect on you if you bake the Torah. How do you bake the Torah? If you learn it with love, with a fire to Hashem. And when you say, Vaidaber Hashem Moshe Lema, your heart is burning a fire because you're loving Hashem, and that's why you're learning the Torah. Then the Torah is going to give you all the sustenance, and you're going to be able to derive new laws from the Torah and figure out all hundreds of cents of the Torah. So therefore the Torah says, on the sabbatical, when you come to the land of Israel, I want you to know right away that the whole purpose you're coming to Israel is to make the world a sabbatical world, to make the world godly. That's, you should know right away. How do you practically do it? Work the field for 6 years. Then the 7th year you rest. But even while you're working the field for 6 years, you should already know that my whole purpose of working the field is to get to what? To the point to make the world a place for Hashem. May Hashem help that we should be able to accomplish this mission. And when we come to our land and to every part of Israel, we should be able to bring the holiness in a revealed way. Amen.